I took the night shift because it was supposed to be easy money. No customers, no noise, no stress. Just me, a chair, and a wall full of CCTV monitors inside a quiet office building that shuts down completely after 8 p.m. The supervisor told me my only job was to sit there and watch the screens until morning. If anything unusual happened, I was to log it and call security. Simple. That's what I thought, too, until my third night. The first 2 nights were exactly what you'd expect. Empty hallways, flickering lights, the occasional rat running across the parking lot camera. Nothing serious. I even started bringing snacks, scrolling my phone, barely paying attention half the time. But on the third night, around 1:17 a.m., something on one of the monitors caught my eye. It wasn't movement, not exactly. It was just wrong. Camera 12. I hadn't really paid attention to that one before. It showed a long hallway with white walls and a single door at the end. No windows, no decorations, just a clean, empty corridor. But something about it didn't sit right. I leaned forward and stared at the screen, trying to figure out what felt off. Then it hit me. I didn't recognize that hallway. At first I thought maybe I just hadn't walked through that part of the building yet. It's a big place, after all. Multiple floors, restricted areas, storage sections. But the longer I looked at it, the more certain I became. I had gone through the building during my first shift. Every accessible floor, every open corridor. And I had never seen that hallway before. I checked the label under the monitor. Cam 12, East Wing, lower level. That didn't make sense. There was no lower level in the East Wing, at least not one I had access to. I pulled up the building map on the desk computer and checked again. East Wing. Offices, conference rooms, restrooms. No lower level. No hidden corridor. Nothing. I sat back, frowning, telling myself it was probably just an outdated label or a camera feed from another building routed here by mistake. That had to be it. Systems glitch. Happens all the time, right? But then, something moved. I leaned forward again, eyes locked on the screen. At the far end of that hallway, near the door, a shadow shifted. I held my breath. A figure slowly stepped into view. A man, walking casually down the hallway. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe someone from maintenance, maybe security doing rounds. But as he got closer to the camera, something about the way he moved started bothering me. The pace, the posture, the way his shoulders leaned slightly forward like he was tired. It felt familiar. I squinted, trying to get a better look. And then he stepped directly under the light. And I froze. Because I was looking at myself. Same clothes, same jacket, same exact face. Walking toward the camera like it was nothing. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even breathe properly. I just sat there, staring at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. "That's not possible," I whispered under my breath. Because at that exact moment, I was sitting in the control room, watching him. I didn't move for a few seconds. I just kept staring at the screen, waiting for something to prove it wasn't what I thought it was. A glitch, a reflection, anything. But the longer I watched, the worse it got. The version of me on camera 12 kept walking calmly, like he knew exactly where he was going. No hesitation, no confusion, just steady steps toward the camera. My first instinct was to check myself. I looked down at what I was wearing. Same jacket, same shirt, same everything. I even raised my hand slowly, just to see if the one on the screen would mirror it. He didn't. He just kept walking. That's when my chest tightened. Because that meant one thing. It wasn't a reflection. I quickly grabbed the radio and called out to security. "Hey, is anyone in the East Wing lower level right now?" My voice sounded more normal than I felt. A few seconds of static, then a response. "Negative. East Wing is clear. No lower level access from that side." I looked back at the screen immediately. He had stopped walking, right in the middle of the hallway. My stomach dropped. Slowly, very slowly, the version of me on the monitor turned his head. Not toward the door, not down the hallway, toward the camera, directly at me. I felt something cold run through my body, because it didn't feel like he was just looking at a camera. It felt like he was looking at me. I leaned back in my chair without realizing it. My mind was racing now, trying to find something logical. Someone messing with the system. Pre-recorded footage. A prank. It had to be something. But then he moved again. Not forward this time. Sideways. Closer to the wall. And then he stopped. Just stood there, staring. I swallowed hard and forced myself to look away from the screen for a second. I needed to calm down, think clearly. I grabbed the building map again, scanning it carefully this time, checking for anything I might have missed. Hidden sections, maintenance routes, anything that could explain that hallway. Nothing. No match. No reference. It didn't exist. I looked back at camera 12. He was still there. Same position, same stare. And that's when something even worse hit me. The angle. The camera angle. It didn't look like a fixed CCTV camera anymore. It looked slightly lower, like it had been adjusted. I leaned closer to the monitor, squinting. Then I noticed it. A small shift, almost unnoticeable, but real. The camera was moving. Not glitching, not flickering, moving. Slowly. Like someone was holding it. My heart started pounding now. Because if that was true, then that wasn't a security camera. That was a camera being carried. And it was pointed directly at him. At me. I stood up from my chair without thinking, my eyes still locked on the screen. "What the hell is this?" I muttered. And then he spoke. No sound came through the monitor, but I saw his lips move, clear as day. One sentence, short, slow, deliberate. And I knew exactly what he said, because I read it. "Don't come here." I froze. Every instinct in my body told me to sit back down, ignore it, call someone, do anything except what I was about to do next. But I didn't. Because the moment he finished speaking, he turned and started walking toward the door at the end of the hallway. And something inside me said, if I didn't follow, I'd never understand what I just saw. So I grabbed the flashlight from the desk and stepped out of the control room.
The hallway outside the control room felt different the moment I stepped into it. Same lights, same walls, but quieter. Too quiet. Like the whole building was holding its breath. I told myself to turn back at least twice, but I didn't. I kept walking toward the east wing, following the path I'd already seen on the monitor. Every turn I took felt familiar, not because I'd been there before, but because I had just watched myself take those same steps. When I reached the end of the east wing, I stopped. There was no hallway, just a blank wall. I stood there, confused, heart still racing, trying to figure out what I was missing. I checked the corners, the floor, even ran my hand along the wall like I expected something to open. Nothing. Just solid concrete. "This doesn't make sense," I whispered. Then I remembered something. The door. In the footage, the hallway ended with a door. I looked around again, slower this time, and that's when I noticed it. A thin outline, right in the wall, barely visible, like it had been painted over. I stepped closer and brushed my hand across it. The surface felt slightly different, smoother than the rest of the wall. My fingers traced the edges until I found it. A handle. Cold. Hidden perfectly in plain sight. I hesitated, just for a second. Then I pulled it. The door opened without a sound, and behind it was the hallway. Exactly the same as the one on camera 12. Same white walls, same long stretch, same single door at the end. My chest tightened as I stepped inside slowly, shining my flashlight ahead of me. The air felt colder here, heavier, like this place wasn't meant to be part of the building at all. I turned back for a second. The door behind me was gone. Just a wall. My stomach dropped. No, no, no. I rushed back to where the door should have been, pressing my hands against the wall, searching for the outline again. Nothing. It had disappeared. I stood there for a moment, breathing hard, trying not to panic. Calm down, just calm down. But deep down, I already knew. I wasn't supposed to be here. I turned slowly and looked down the hallway. The door at the end was still there, just like on the monitor. And something told me that was my only way out. So I started walking. Each step echoed softly, louder than it should have in such a narrow space. My flashlight flickered once, then steadied. The walls looked clean up close, but something about them felt wrong. Too perfect, too empty, like a copy of a place rather than a real one. Halfway down the hallway, I slowed, because I saw something on the floor. Footprints, faint but visible, leading toward the door. I crouched down and looked closer. They were fresh, and they matched my shoes. I swallowed hard and stood back up, my grip tightening around the flashlight. That means I didn't finish the sentence because I already knew. I wasn't following him anymore. I was following myself. I forced myself to keep moving until I reached the door at the end. My hand hovered over the handle for a moment. Then I pushed it open and stepped through.
The room on the other side was small, dark, quiet. For a second, I thought it was empty, until I saw the glow. A monitor, sitting on a desk, already on. My heart started racing again as I stepped closer, the light from the screen reflecting on the walls. I didn't need to get too close to know what it was showing. I had already seen it before. The control room. My control room. The same chair, the same desk, the same wall of cameras. And sitting there was me, exactly where I had been earlier, watching the screens. I felt my throat go dry. No. I moved closer, slowly, staring at the monitor, trying to understand what I was looking at. The version of me on the screen leaned forward, just like I had done, adjusted in the chair, rubbed his face. Everything matched. Then he looked up, straight at the screen, at me, and I felt something snap inside my chest.
because I knew what he was seeing. Not just cameras, not empty hallways. Me, standing in this room, watching him, the same way I had been watching the other version before. "This doesn't make sense," I whispered. But deep down, it did. I just didn't want to accept it. I looked around the room quickly, searching for anything that could explain it. That's when I noticed something mounted in the corner. A camera, small, barely noticeable, pointed directly at me. I slowly turned back to the monitor. The angle matched perfectly. That camera was the one feeding camera 12. My chest tightened, because that meant everything I had seen earlier was happening right now. I wasn't watching the past. I wasn't watching something fake. I was watching this exact moment from the other side. I stumbled back slightly, my mind racing. No, 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 no. Then I remembered the words, the warning. Don't come here. My breathing got heavier. That wasn't a warning for me to stay away. It was a warning from someone who already made the mistake. From me. I turned back to the monitor. The version of me in the control room suddenly stood up, just like I had, grabbed the flashlight, just like I had, and started walking toward the door. My heart dropped, because I knew exactly where he was going. "Stop," I whispered, but he couldn't hear me. He opened the control room door and stepped out, and just like that, the loop continued. I stared at the monitor, frozen, waiting. Seconds passed, then minutes, and then movement on camera 12. A figure slowly stepped into view from the far end of the hallway, walking toward the camera. Same pace, same posture, same clothes. It was him, again. I felt my legs go weak, because now I understood everything. There was no beginning, there was no end, just this, over and over again. I took a slow step back, shaking my head. This isn't real. But the camera in the corner stayed fixed on me, recording, streaming, waiting. And somewhere, in another room, another version of me was sitting down, watching this exact moment, trying to understand what he was seeing, just like I did, and just like I failed to do. I looked back at the monitor one last time, at myself, watching, confused, curious, about to make the same decision. And I realized something that made my chest tighten even more. This wasn't a trap meant to kill me. It was worse. It was a loop that needed me to keep watching, to keep following, to keep becoming the next version on that screen. I stepped slowly toward the camera in the corner. My face probably looked just as confused as his did earlier. And for a second, I almost laughed, because now I understood what he was trying to say. Not, "Don't come here," but something deeper, something I couldn't hear, but I could feel. I looked directly into the camera and whispered softly, "Don't follow him."